Hello, DrawClass people. Thanks for signing up for the DrawClass tier. We appreciate you and all the support you've given us. Hey, this is apparently my radio voice. Hi, everyone. Like I said, welcome to DrawClass. Thanks for being a DrawClass patron tier supporter. And thank you to everyone who submitted questions. I'll also take questions during this class. Because of course I will. Why wouldn't I? Julia face reveal. You never knew what I looked like before. You thought I was a can of sardines. But I am not. Sorry, I'm looking up a reference image. But Jacob's internet gives him different stuff than what mine does, so I'm just parsing the stuff. Hey, how's everyone doing today? Hope everyone's doing well. That's a good one. Okay. Hope everyone's doing well on this Friday. Hey, we're already through April. Ain't that crazy? Ain't that wild? Putting on my John glove. You know, I was surprised by the lack of people who said, hey, I'm looking how to do this thing in my art. How do I do this thing? And then giving me their art piece. But maybe people weren't aware that they could do such a thing. Oh, I left my phone. Maybe I should have my phone. Hold on. I was correct to have my phone. I have so many emails. Anyway. I'm here. Okay, I'm also grabbing my phone to see if anyone submits a new question in the DrawClass tier as this class goes on. Although, you could just ask it in the chat. But, should we get into it? Let's get into it. I usually try to wait 5 minutes. It's been 4. I'll wait until 3:05. I'm doing a lot of stuff today, so my brain is tired. Jacob's search results give him so much cool fashion. This really fun fashions. Wow, my phone vibrating already. My dad just asked me if I wanted a router from like 2001. Anyway, all right, let's get into it. So, the first question that I saw in the DrawClass chat was this one. Thank you for submitting this question. For the Julia Q&A, when you leave spaces in the line art and the brain completes the rest of the line, would you be able to explain why that happens? That's a great question. And it's one that requires a little bit of push and pull. So let's talk about it. They're talking about specifically, this isn't my beautiful pen. Let's get this mic tightened up. There we go. Gonna highlight it in bright green as I do. They're talking about, of course, like this whole section. What in the world? This whole section. And this, you know, is filled in because of the color. So, yeah, I had a lot of fun with this one. I was really just like playing around. So I think the best way to explain this is to look at connect the dots. If you look at this, can you connect the dots? Can you see what shape it makes? And why is that? Why can you do that? It's because you have enough information. It's insane that they go to the left instead of the right to me. But it's because you get enough information that you don't need everything to be connected to know what shape it is, right? So even if these like numbers weren't here, you can even like get rid of some of these dots, right? Get rid of the numbers. Have as little information as possible. So it's because usually when you have a shape, why did it switch? There we go. When you have a shape that there's no like changes in it, your brain automatically connects one point to the next point, right? So you could get rid of this one. You could probably get rid of this. Like if you know it's going to be a curve, you can still follow. Like if you want it to be smooth, you still get that. Now you need more information where the piece is changing so that your brain can fill those in. Because if you were to do this, you're like, okay. You know, you could probably infer that because it's a leaf shape, you could do that, you know? But like, how far can you push, you know, not having the information before it becomes like too little? You know? So let's do, oh yeah, and then at the same time, if you have a shape, like I said, that has a lot of changes in it, your brain can't automatically fill it in. Like, what is this? Is this a killer whale? Is this an orca? No, it's a giraffe. Oh my god, I rotated. I rotated it. It took me a while. Don't worry, everyone, I got there. I don't know why it took me so long. Probably because I got overwhelmed by information, but then here's the thing. Here are their little horns. Here's the thing. Here's the little cheeks. I got it. For some reason, I really wanted it to be an orca. You could see why. Like, if you're thinking of, like, the Free Willy... Free Willy. I'm thinking of, like, the Free Willy image, where he's, like... And he's got the one fin. You know? Anyway. You see what I mean? So it's about having the correct amount of information presented to you to be able to fill those dots in. So I pulled up a reference image from the internet. I'm going to put it on screen so that you can see it. and then we're going to draw part of it. I'm not going to draw the whole thing, but hold on, give me 1 second. Okay. So, and usually what I do, and this is because I'm not comfortable yet with exactly how much you can push and pull in an image, but let's start with, you know, a sketch here. You know what? Let's do this in a way that makes sense to my brain. There we go. Okay. We're gonna do a sketch first, right? So we're gonna say, we're gonna angle it. And this is just to help us know what we're working with. Again, this drawing is not going to be super accurate because I don't need it to be for today. Yeah, go. I could draw a circle. That'd be really cool. Here we go. We have the nose. This is such a cool photo. Cool fashion, cool photo. Don't know who this person is, but I like the picture. But I like this piece because it has a lot of straight lines in it, which helps us with the exercise we're doing. So again, I'm just drawing the whole thing for now, so that you can see the sort of push and pull that we're going to be playing with. It's also really important to have very clear reference, especially when you're just starting off with learning a skill. This one is not the clearest one because I blew it up so much, but I have the original on the screen here so I can reference it. Everything's getting a little blurry. This is the first thing that I've drawn today. Down. Okay. The shoulder of this. Okay. And sleeve is about here. And the hand is going behind that. Okay. And it's funny that I was asked about this because this is something I experimented a lot with in college because I did a lot of straight up like pen and ink pieces. I forgot to see if I was on the correct layer, and luckily I am. Okay. Okay, and usually I would do this in like a different color so that I can see the inks on top of it, especially when I'm doing digital, or only when I'm doing digital. You know, if I'm doing traditional, the shoulder needs to come out more. I'll just do it in pencil and then I'll do pen on top. Gotta curved shoulder here. Okay. So this is what we're going to start off with. Okay. So now I'm going to lower the opacity. I'm going to bring her over. Now let's grab a inking pen. I have a preferred one, which is the chisel, because again, it reminds me a lot of stuff I used in college. Okay, so in terms of like the piece that I did, which is this one, to remind everyone, there's really only black, white, and this bright pink that I put in. And so I played around a lot with that. I put in the lines, and then I put in the medium shadow to just play around with. And then I put in like the darkest shadow where I felt like I needed to break it up a little bit to add some variation. And then I went in and I changed some of like the pen lines. We can go through all that in a sec, but basically to keep with the original sort of like theme, it's a lot of like blocky shapes. So one of the really nice blocky shapes is of course her like very dark hair that's coming down. So let's, you know what, let's actually, so we'll keep in mind that we want to block out that hair. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start inking. My eye is itchy. Okay. Good enough. Because something like the glasses, because you have this overlap, because you have like a dark shape over another dark shape, we might want to just go in and like lock the transparencies and then change the line color so that, you know, we're not getting too crowded with the lines here. And I'll show you what that means in a second once I'm done doing the inks here. And like I said, this isn't going to be super accurate to the original. I'm just trying to show a good example for the method to the madness so people can follow along if you want. Also, something that helps, you'll notice I'm going like thin in some parts and thicker in the others. That's like, you know, a step away from your brain filling some stuff in. It just gives it more weight. It gives it some variation. Yeah. So it comes out a lot and then it goes in. And we'll do changing from the sketch a little bit just because the sketch is a little rough and seeing some changes that need to be made. Get these in. Okay. Oops. Enough. Okay. Then we'll get the bag, which out and goes back in very slightly. Basically noticeable. Okay. Great. And then we have nose. Kind of made her a little frog-esque, so I apologize for this model. That's what happens when you draw real fast. Okay, so let's get rid of this and let's get rid of our sketch. So I'm gonna break this up so that there's a lot of playing around that we can do. So like I said, we have this shape here. Going to not generative fill. Are you kidding me? I'm so no, I'm not even going to play with that. I was like, I'm so curious what it would fill it with, but I don't want to do that. And then we have okay. So this is pretty cool, this shape. And I mean, you know, you have these little speckles here at the side, which kind of like helps. And you already like get the sense that it's glasses, but it could also be like shadow. So you want to be a little bit more clear. So something that I like to do when playing around with this is I'll make a layer on top of my line layer, and then I'll do Control G, which of course brings up Jacob's Google Drive. So instead, I will create a clipping mask, which is that you right click the layer. Here, I'll show you guys. I'll pull it up over here. I'll show you again, just so it's clear now. So this is my line layer right here. And so I like to make a layer on top of that and then create a clipping mask, which clips onto the one here, which means that anything you draw will only relate to the layer below it. Now I have white. And I'm just going over this. And it's just breaking up that shape a little bit, right? To say, it's glasses. Hey, this one's glasses. So let's do the same thing here of just... There we go. So now, if you want to start messing around with some of the shapes, right? Because you think that, you know, it doesn't, not all the information's needed, which I agree. Like, and you could also think about it like, where is the light coming from? This does not have a super strong light source. The light is very, like, the light is, you know, is coming in from this angle, as you can see. Right? So it's pretty low. So even this is like, this is darker and this is lighter. So you could think of it like that if you wanted, where, you know, it's super, there's not a lot of contrast between a lot of shapes. But again, this it doesn't really have too much you can do here. Like, you can maybe get away with this. Like, you see, you can, your mind can fill in that gap. I realized I never drew this. And then there's a lot of things that you can cheat because you are not a camera. So in this original picture, I keep going to my layers over there. I'm sorry. I moved it so you guys could see it because I'm in front of it. But you see how there's a lot of like shadow here, but not a lot of shadow here. And so what you can do is you can play around with having like thinner lines here and then thicker lines here, right? So it's like bright until it's not, and then it gets a little lighter, right? And then not. And this is like kind of the cardigan texture, the knit, right? This isn't something that you have to do, but it is like a nice little touch. And if you put in this information, you can then play around with deleting more information around the space, right? So. And it could give it just like a nice effect. And see, by doing these lines, you don't even have to continue this like collar line. We have the information on this side that there is a little detailing here, like a little thickness for the buttons. So you don't need to continue it on the other side. You've already established the pattern. Let's get rid of the reference. And so for the shapes, or the spots where it's like, you want a little bit more info, just play around with it, fill it in as you see fit. So, like this space, actually a little bit of a gap here. Bag. I'm trying to think of like where else. Let's do some. I feel like we need a little bit. Or maybe we can get. Just because these lines are going horizontally as opposed to vertically, it like could kind of feel like it's going that way. We do kind of want this shape in because it's containing. But then again, if you wanted to play around, let's use like the yellow of her sweater, like a yellowy orange. And we could use it as the shadow. Like if we wanted to do this instead, we could get rid of these outside lines and just have this yellow. That looks pretty cool. But we have to be intentional about how much information, intentional and consistent with how much information we want to give the audience, so that we don't create some confusion. So you don't want to now go in and do something really detailed with like another color, because then that would be very visually confusing. Hey, look at that. Does that make any sense at all? Was that helpful at all? It's like a hard thing to explain out the gate. It's just like, or not out the gate, but it's just, you have to see what, like, this kind of works, but then it could seem a little drapey. They say the artist should aim to imply details. Yeah, which is basically like what we're doing here. We're not drawing each, you know, cable. We're saying it is a cable knit sweater, and you can see that by the like the thickness of like the ridges, but we're not drawing every single individual cable shadow, you know. We're establishing that it is there, and your brain goes, okay, I understand. And then that way, if you don't show it in some places where there's more light, then your brain still says, oh, it's still a cable knit, it's just like a little lighter. So, yeah. It's a cool photo. Yeah. Alternatively, you can create more of a dark space here. You can come in, and if you really feel like it's necessary, you know, have that the line for the bag stand out a little bit more. Nope. Yep. Just to break up that shape. How will it look without the line art now? Just the orange black? That's a good question. That looks bananas. Although if we cleaned it up, it would look pretty cool. Well, I guess we do that. Do you see we're even... Why is that space there? Oh, the button. The buttons. The ribbons. The ribbons. Sorry, Pride and Prejudice reference. Mary, the ribbons. The ribbons. Too little of the detail. See, so now... Whoop. So now... We still got like a pretty good idea of what is happening here. Maybe if we want some more detail. Ugh. Like this whole mouth area looks very funny. Ah! Kind of looks like someone screaming like that. See, you need to like move it around a little bit, but I hope that helps. That's basically my process. It's basically where there's like, if it is continuing a pattern and there's nothing interrupting it, like this is a continual pattern, you can, you know, get rid of some of this and your brain will still go. But if it's like doing this and you get rid of, you know, this, You're like, what? What is this? Feed me, mother. Do birds have tongues? Feed me. And obviously, like a straight line, like in the... Put all of this in order. Here, like, this is a straight line. This is implied. Because this shape also helps, like, reinforce it a little bit. Like, this is the... It's, like, right there, so... Yeah. And then I don't know. If I didn't feel like it was that important, I just got rid of it. I kept the key information that I wanted you to know. So let's go on to question number 2, if no one else has any follow-up questions to that first one. Question number 2. Woodpeckers have very long tongues. I guess that's true, yeah. We have a lot of woodpeckers around our house. They're very pretty. Okay. Someone said, I have a question about your style. Go for it. So I've been watching you draw for a while now, and I saw you sometimes produce very painterly artworks, like in that one episode where you did a speed draw of some beautiful portraits of a man before eventually painting a monster. Could you tell us about your art journey related to that painterly style? Is that something you got interested in relatively recently, or was it something you decided to produce on a whim from time to time? What did you study? Maybe mention some revelation moments that particularly stuck with you while you were practicing. Any tips to share on how to apply more painterly approach? Lots of really good questions. And I feel like being an artist is going on a journey, and I think that also I have a really nice advantage of being on a channel like Drawfee, where we can do these journeys. And I can have some more freedom to play around. I'm finding some reference so that we can look at. I feel like for that piece, I had something in mind, and then it wasn't turning out, and then I pivoted. So where my brain is, or, you know, starts, is that I really like to emphasize the mood. I'm sure everyone knows this about me. But I really focus on the mood. I really want you to feel a certain way when you look at the piece. So I try to think about how I can best accomplish this. And a lot of the time, that unfortunately means painterly. Well, unfortunately for me, because being painterly does not come naturally to me. But I do like it. It's just kind of a complicated process. But, you know, with the spooky man, it was the one character description of like a little monster in a barrel or whatever, the size of a barrel. I don't even remember anymore. I had a theme in mind, and then my brain was going through it a little bit. So I just I let it go. I let it do its thing. But let's get some reference up. Oh, this is a good one. Well, that one or this one? Yeah, we'll go with this one. Okay. So one of my favorite illustrators, or not one of my favorite illustrators, my favorite illustrator of all time is J.C. Lyon Decker. if you don't know who JC Leyendecker is, don't worry, I just put LC Leyendecker because I wasn't paying attention. JC Leyendecker is a very geometric focused painter. I will put some of his pieces on the screen now so that you can see it. There you go. It's one of his messier ones. And I say he's very geometric because he used to, well, when he painted, he would do a graph in the background and he would follow that graph. And that's something that I always really liked about his pieces. Let's see. He did a lot of, someone said the fabric folds are beautiful. Yeah, he did a lot of ads for the Arrow Shirt Company, I believe. But yeah, I mean, look at that. He leaves so much in there. He leaves the background just like popping in, but see, they all follow this general goal. The graph that he used to put in, I believe, hold on. See if I can't find it. Here it is. Here's a good example. So this is the chart that he would do. It was like these diamondy ones. But you can see his practice studies here. You can see that it kind of followed, like lines up in some way. See it, this is following this, this is following here. I really, really like how he paints. It's so good. Oh, this is a good. Oh, it's a lot larger on the internet. Okay, anyway. I just really like his work. He's my favorite illustrator. Which I think people would expect me to go for a spookier artist as my inspiration. But I like how he does his shapes. He's very geometric. Apparently the one on the right is a copy someone did, but this one is him. Anyway, so I studied a lot of him growing up. And I really like just the shapes that he would do for shadows and things like that. And I would always keep it in mind whenever I would paint a face. This is one of his, I think, charcoal drawings. Something like that. I don't know. Anyway. So, he did a lot of really cool just blocks, right? So, drop my glove. Okay. This is not my glove. Here we go. All right. So anyway, so he has some really cool, like, look at the shadows on this one. Like this leg. First of all, there's another light coming back here, but it's like creating a shape like that, a shadow. See, like this is here, but he still has that secondary light. This one's getting such a strong, like these shapes are so strong because the light's really strong over here. And it's getting softer as it goes up, but then like look at this blue. Look at this. So I've always really liked how he's done light and shadow and the shapes within it. Like look at the Look at the shapes on that hand. So good. Also, he like didn't do any detail on the teeth ever. Like, look at that. They've got AI teeth. So when I do a moodier piece, like this in the example, I find that like the subtleties in it are easier to do in a painterly style than ink. So sometimes when something isn't working and I feel like I want more detail, more details in the face and things like that, I would pull up. I'm gonna pull up Drawfee. Hold on. I'm going to get that piece. I'm going to mute this site. Detailed teeth get really unsettling real fast. Yeah. Okay. Me, 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 me. Me, 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 me. Here we go. Okay. So this is a piece that I did as screenshotted from YouTube. But I wanted it to be largely in shadow. I wanted it to be a dark piece so that you're really squinting at it and you're looking in for details and nothing's really like jumping out at you, because I wanted the viewer to feel uncomfortable. So I'm going to take a photo, a nicely lit photo. You know what? Oh, this guy's cool. I don't know who this is, but he's got a cool face. Okay, so let's take this photo and we'll do a really quick painting of it. What we'll do eyes. In. This is a little. Again, I'm just eyeballing this and I'm doing this real fast so that I'm not spending forever on a single question. I also got a question, and this is one that I can kind of talk about while I'm working on this. Someone had asked, you know what, let me pull it up before I continue. Both on your streams and videos, you guys are able to get so much done in such a short time. Is it something you diligently learned how to do, or did it just come with drawing a lot? Part of it is from drawing a lot. Most of it, I would say, is from drawing a lot. I would say that it's also because of the nature of the channel, and we feel a pressure to move quickly for the sake of content and viewer retention and for everyone else's in the room's sake, so that we're not spending forever and no one has to banter for, you know, a million years. So we've learned shortcuts, and we've also learned not to get too precious with it most of the time. I mean, we all still have our moments where we are down on ourselves and we think like, oh my god, I can't do art. So that will slow us up, and then we want to do something really professional and refined. And so, you know, that will slow you down. But And also just like sometimes you have a bad drawing. That's just a fact of life. But for the most part, it's just knowing what you're looking for and what information that you need to accomplish like what you're trying to do. And sometimes you don't know what that is. But there is a nice thing, again, with being on the channel where you don't have a lot of time to be getting bogged down in details or in your head. Like, you kind of just have to move and you have to go, like, it'll be what it'll be. And, you know, when you're on Drawfee, the way that, like, I see it and a few others see it is that, like, most of the time we're not, and again, sometimes we have bad art days and we really want to prove ourselves as good artists. But we have to just make it funny. Like, we have episodes where we want good art, but most of the time we just want it to be a funny bit. So we break it down to the information that we need to get as fast as the results as possible that are close enough. We're not aiming for perfection. We'll start off with a basic shape, we'll continue. And I think like a good exercise for that is life drawing. And I know that that's really like stress inducing for people to, you know, draw people. Like I used to sketch people on the train all the time. And very rarely someone would say something, but it was usually like someone I was sitting next to who would be like, "What you doing?" And I would have to say, you know, I'm just sketching for practice. And most people usually find it cool, and then they usually say, I can't even draw a stick figure. And you go, I bet you could. I bet you could if you tried. But drawing in you know, real life, you have to move. You have to move real fast because you don't know that person, especially if they're just living their life and they're not like a model that's you're paying to sit for however long. You want them, you want to capture something. And if it's a full body pose, you do like, okay, here's like where the head goes, here's the spine, so that I have like the basic information down. And then, okay, I need to get in more detail about the face shape or what they're doing, or, you know, whatever it is that's important to you or that you are finding interesting in that moment. Because you might not get the full person. So you start broad and then go into details, because if you're broad with it, then, you know, just like with the first question, your brain is filling in a lot of the information and you're getting like a general picture. And then hopefully you've more time for details as it goes on. But it really teaches you to find the important things. Okay, I'm taking a little longer on this sketch than I would have liked, but nope, not the whole thing. Hard working on someone else's computer. Everything laid out at an angle that you're not used to. Anyway. Go like this. Okay. That is a pretty low mouth. Well, lines up to be center, as mouths tend to do. Oh, that line that I drew, by the way, is because the corners of your mouths usually line up with the center of your eyes. So when you're doing, let's go over the face rune. If you have the face rune, here's like the center of the head. Here's the eyes. The nose goes slightly below that. Here's the chin. And the mouth is usually equidistant between the nose and the chin. But then the eyes, if you're looking at like a section, like this section, it's usually the halfway point and the halfway point. And then if you go straight down, usually the corners of the mouth. And then usually the ears line up with the bottoms of your ears. And your eyebrows line up with the tops of your ears. So this guy's got, you know, depth to his head, so the ears seem up. He's a little down. So if you curve it. Yeah. Anyway. Boop. Made this dude's face like entirely too long. Alright, it's not the point of this. Okay. So I just wanted to get the basic shape down of his face, because I'm mostly going to be painting his face so that you guys can see how I do this. Okay. 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 So something I find helpful sometimes is sketching out the shadows. Gonna be a highlight here. Gonna be this eyebrow ridge line. Now we have cheek. Goes down to the mouth. I messed up this dude's like whole deal. That's okay. Okay, so then when I paint, I usually do a mid-tone. A lot of people do like a warm mid-tone, like 50-50. Kind of depends on the kind of mood you want to go for. So hold that away. Let's do that. Yeah, actually, we'll keep that there. And then, since we're going to do a grayscale painting, I'm going to start with a perfect mid-tone. Okay. So, we're going to block in dude's face. Great. That we just have the basic skin tone down. Now, depending on who you ask, they'll say start darkest. I personally don't like to start with the darkest tone. I like to go for a mid tone, or not mid, but like a mid to dark, somewhere between there, like a 75%. Pink box. I don't remember what brush I used, but this is probably fine. Yeah, it's fine enough. Okay. So now What I did was that I took my sketch from before and I just put it on top and I lowered the opacity. And I'm going to use that clipping mask that I had before. That I didn't do yet. We're not going to worry about getting into the details yet. We just want to get like the basics. Let's do that clipping mask now. I just remembered. There we go. Just remembered that Jacob's computer does not have that shortcut because it goes to GeForce Experience or whatever. Okay. And we're not looking for perfect yet. Because remember, it's Painterly. It's digital Painterly too, so we can really mess around. And then we wanted to paint this eye. So also let's like go in. Get that. Let's go in and we'll do some lighter tones and just start building that a little bit. Usually the nose is the brightest part of the face. Okay. And like the top of the lip. So it's gonna look a mess. And again, this is just how I like to work. But then, you know what? I'll do this. I'm gonna move my layers out of the way because it's not super important that you see them anymore. Then we'll move this. You know what? If we're gonna focus on just the eye for now, just so I can use that as a good example for what we're doing here. So this eye, very dark. I feel like that is the most noticeable part. So let's start with dark. I'm gonna do the chisel that I was using before. My brain doesn't work. My brain doesn't work. Here it is, ink box. Chisel. Okay. So, I feel like because it is so, like, impossibly dark, probably digitally, you know, made to be darker. Let's start there. I feel like, too, something that I did on the piece was that I tried not to get too bogged down in the details. Since it was so dark, I could kind of, like, cheat some of the shadows, right? Okay. Now let's go with this. So then what we can start doing, building out I'm on the wrong layer. There we go. I was like, why isn't this as dark as I want it to be? Why? So you see, we're just like getting in the basic tones here. We have the sketch that we did to work off of. Not that much space between the eye and the eyebrow. Just I'm gonna get that down. You can see some of the eye creeping in. So let me go back to eraser. We'll do this. And we'll start pulling some of this back. Yeah. And then on top of what we already did, we'll start pulling out some of these highlights because there's a lot of them. We have eyelid right there. And something to note too is that it's such like a clean hard line here and then gets softer. So we will try and emphasize that. Maybe we can even do that by doing like a lasso tool. Just coming in with an eraser. Sorry, I'm just trying to work back what I did. Alright, whatever. Come in. Move that out. And two, something you can do is not zoom in that much. You know. And what I like to do is I like to take the eyedropper and I'll come in just to smooth out these like tougher lines that I've done. We have this here. We're just looking at these basic shapes. Like, basically how I'm viewing the eye here in this reference. Is there anything on this layer? Nope. Good. Is I kind of see, like, this cone shape for a highlight. This other shape. And it kind of, like, bleeds out. The eyelid depth here. I see this shape. You know, I see that. There's this shape right here, which is going out, but is darker. So I'm just breaking it down into simpler shapes and looking at the tone of them. There we go. I'll even go in with like a harder... This is so bright here. Make this pop. But you see I'm being pretty broad. Pretty broad. We can... This will soften some of this. And this is just how I work. There's people who do this more frequently than me that do it completely differently. But for me, someone who's so, I don't know, shape oriented. I love a shape. Not. Then it gets lost in the skin a little bit. I'll come back in. And then For these for the eyelashes. So yeah, this is how I like paint from reference. Oops. See, it's just not getting too bogged down in you know what everything is and each shape and each like little you know pore. It's just breaking it down into shape. Just yeah. I think too, you know, when someone was saying that I make so many moody pieces, like that a porcelain piece, do like a I thought I heard an owl. We do have an owl that lives around here. It just seems a little early for him. You know, for that a porcelain piece that I did, she's like really like she was so like scrunched because she was coming monster. I try to think about the contrast too. So if I want the eyes to really pop, I'll go with, you know, darker here. Oh, I sketched on the wrong layer. Do that. And then we'll have it pop out. I'm thinking about the lighting, and I'm thinking about what I want to emphasize. And then come in with a big contrast. Like a little gremlin-y. She's a little gremlin-y. Into that book. Monster. Spoilers. Yeah, and I just find that sometimes it's just fun. You can like hide details, you can put details as much as you want. You don't have to put... I don't know, I feel like when you have like pen and ink, sometimes they want you to define every little thing. Sometimes I wanna. And then she was like catching fire or something. I kind of forgot how that book ends. Read it enough times, I should know, but then we can use this to sort of highlight really where this bless this mess situation is. Green sketch remnants kind of remind me of radioactive veins. That's true. Then we'll go into that lesson we were talking about earlier about the implied lines. There. Yeah, so I don't know, I just like how gradual painting can be. And then also when you do something so graphic on top of it, I think the contrast is really nice. So I like to play around with it. Do a headline thing, but yeah, it's just, I don't know, it makes it feel so much more real like this sometimes. Little weirdo monster. Did it again. Anyway, yeah, so I usually default to painting when I want to do something very spooky, you know, because it's so easy to go in and out of the light. I think this is how I did that portrait of that dude. Very simple, like putting the dark tone and then putting some highlights and letting the paper speak a little bit. Letting the paper be the midtone and just getting too bogged down in yeah. Yep, that makes sense. Because I can't spend forever doing a Drawfee piece as much as I would like to sometimes. But I also have a child. Okay. Anyway. I hope that answers your question. It was kind of a long-winded answer, but this is why I go painterly sometimes. Just because it's fun to be spooky in painterly style. Someone said, hi Julia, thanks for doing the Q&A. I wanted to ask if I could talk a little bit about rendering metal. It feels like I'm missing something in the process. I try to follow what tutorials say I should do, but in the end result never looks right. Metal is so complicated. It's complicated. I don't blame you. So let's look at some reference. Let's look at some reference. I think the best way to break down metal and swords and things is, I think like the thing that people forget is shine. And I'm not talking about how glowy it is. I'm talking about the shine and how shine reflects light and takes on light. So I have, that's pretty good. This one's good. I have a reference image. Oh, actually, this one's really good. So here's a reference image of a sword. I do want to say, if I haven't said it already, and like I said, my brain's busted, so sorry if I repeat myself. Metal is really difficult until you get it. And even then, it's still hard. But I think the thing that we have to keep in mind with metal is you get these bars. You get, hey, bars. See this? So you need to go in and break up your gradient. So like, let's draw the sword. The blade part of the sword. Let's go back to my trusty chisel. Okay. So we're gonna draw the blade part. If I could draw a straight line. There we go. Close enough, whatever. You know what? Let's cheat. Because the point of this is not how to draw a sword, how to paint the middle. What the hell is over here? Okay. So. Let's do, so first of all, it's reflecting the sky. So you have this blue tone here. So let's put in basic blue tone that is on this sword. Okay. And I'm going to show where I think that most people, I feel like people throw up their hands a little too soon with metal and say like, it's not working, I don't understand why. And I've been there. I do that with painting still today. And art still today. So I'll go, I don't know why this is working, I give up. But if you like keep pushing a little bit, you're gonna get there. So, metal. Let's just do this. So you have this white tone, and oh god, the shortcut thing's gonna kill me. There we go. Okay, so we have white, and now you see that it's getting lighter, and then coming back out. So let's do, we're gonna focus on this right side first. I feel like people do one pass, and again, I'm not blaming anyone. This isn't like a pointing fingers at all. It's just an observation, and it's from my own experience that I feel like most people do one layer of highlight or shadow, and they say, that's it. I'm also doing the interior. And then let's get a soft brush to erase. There we go. And then as well, we'll get this middle bit. So this is just the highlight. You know what? Let's just stay with this basic up-down thing. I feel like people think about metal and they say it has a light source, and then they do like a, here's the light source, and then they would kind of do like a, oh, the light is down here, so we're gonna do like a this, and then we go, oh, because the sword has like these two different angles to it, then this one's in shadow, sort of thing. You know, maybe this one doesn't have anything either. And then we go, because this one's in shadow, okay, well, I'm gonna do this. And call it a day. Even though that one doesn't look too bad. But we're forgetting that because metal is reflective, it can get more detail from the light source. It can't get all of the detail, but it can get detail. So it can say like this is so clearly the sun. You know, it's the sun in the sky. And then here, your horizon line somewhere around here, right? And then this, because that angle is away from us, it is seeing the horizon line and the sun at a wonky angle. So we are reflecting the light in the scenery. So you can't just assign this, like, and if your piece doesn't have a background to it, that's fine. You have to think about your light source and say, how is that affecting the sword? Or how is that affecting, you know, the metal in the piece? So let's black lines. Okay. Do this. Now let's do, now it has like the gray shadow of the landscape. This. Have this. And then if you're doing like a blade, it has like an edge. So there's usually, and I'll even do the trick from before, where I'm going to turn, oops, I'm going to turn the line into the edge of the blade. Why not? And then we're going to go in with a little bit more detail for all of the things that are reflecting. Again, we have this highlight here, so we could go in and put in that highlight, and it's already looking more like metal, right? I am going to lose my mind if I open GeForce Experience one more time. I'm going to lose it. Lose it, I say. Oops. Okay. Get a little reflection here. We're going to break it up with those bands, like I said before. And then we have some of the, like, the brown, earthy tones from the background. Again, it's at this angle, so we're going to stay consistent with it. And because it's a sharp sword, got those angles. Bring back some of the blue here. Does this make sense, what I'm saying? I know that metal is a lot, but basically, if you want to be real quick about it, like a shorthand of metal, pull out my seal. So let's say we have this, and let's say the light is this, right? Coming from that way. We'll do whoops, all layers. Here we go. So there's our mid-tone. And again. Get this highlight. Maybe we'll switch it up, make it a different tone or hue or whatever. Oh, what you'll want to do, I'm just hiding the, if you hit Control H, it hides the little marching ants. I find them to be a little distracting, so I tend to hide them. Well, if it's up there. You can start off with the gradient. Do something like that. And then, on top of all that, I want you to pull out some, whoops, some bars, light. You can make them different thicknesses. You know, let's say that it's like that. And it would get smaller and thinner as it goes away from the light source, right? There you go. And then two, it tends to like grab onto edges a little bit because the edges tend to have more scuffs and imperfections than we think. And then we'll do this. Oops. And then again, let's just go in with some bars. Can this go away, please? You hide that bar. Usually around these edges. And then, as an added bonus, oh, I still have the problem when you select things and then you hide the marching ants is that you forget. What you can do now is on top of that, if you really want to highlight that shine, you can have this. And then, like I said, and have it go like that. See? So that already looks so much more metallic. Someone said, almost like mirrors and polished metal have something in common. Yeah. Yeah. Fun fact for anyone who doesn't know how mirrors work. There you go. Anyway, does that make sense? I hope that's helpful to whomever asked that question, if you're in chat. That's how I tend to look at it. I tend to look at it when I'm trying to simplify the process. I look at the basic shapes, where the light's coming from, and then I do gradient and some diagonal bars. And then maybe a glow of like, you know, I put this like soft white over it just to give it a little bit more gleam. But that's how I do metal. Any follow-up questions for the metal? I'm going to take a drink while chat catches up. I don't think so. So, okay. Next question. Some said, hi, Julia. Hello, Bloom Crane. Said, I am wondering how to make a big art project work. For me, a comic book / graphic novel. For anyone, that is a big art project. So, congratulations. Especially when art is my hobby and not my profession. I also struggle with finding the spot at which I am confident enough in my skills and I'm ready to start with the project. And I bet my skills / style would evolve during the project, so I need to keep it consistent somehow. Finally, Any tips on giving the best head start for the comic so that it reaches a wider audience would be very helpful. They also said, sorry for the long and windy question. It's not at all. It's a very good question because I think it's broad enough, but I think that when you read something that's really long, your art is going to advance. So I'm thinking, oh my God, what's that? Oh, there we go. So one that I'd like to reference, and I don't know if I'll be able to find a good example. But one that I really like to use as an example is a manga called Hikaru no Go. It is a manga about Go. But Jacob was reading it, and the first chapter and the last chapter's art are so different. And it's because the artist just kept on improving, right? And that's going to happen, and that's awesome. And, you know, if your skills improve, well, that's just an added bonus as you're going, you know? That's just a reward to the reader that it's gotten better. And if you're saying like that you struggle with presenting something that is, you know, as you're going through it, you're already improving. Welcome to doing a big project as an artist, unfortunately. Like, there's so many things while I was working on Drawtectives towards the end that drove me nuts about things from the beginning. Like, I was even thinking today about how I would have done something differently, like drawn something differently, but it's because I didn't do that thing yet, so I didn't know like what the process was. But then since I had done it and I'm on like a time schedule, I had to just like accept where that was, and just like put it out. And then episodes later I was like, oh my God, I know of a better way to do it. But I wouldn't have known of a better way to do it if I didn't do it at all. So you are going to improve, and instead of looking at it being like, oh my God, my, you know, the beginning of my art is so bad, or it's not what I would like it to be, or it's not as good as my later stuff, instead of beating yourself up for not being where you are now in the beginning, you should look at it and say like, oh my God, look at how much I've grown. That's awesome. Look at how much I've grown from such a short period of time. Because if you get so bogged down in like, well, this isn't good enough, or I'm going to be better at doing this thing later, you're never going to put anything out, which is fine if your goal is to never put anything out. But if you want to put out like a big artwork project, you are going to have to put something out that is not going to be the future use quality. Because if you are doing well in art, you are always improving. If you are doing mediocre in art, you are still always improving. It is a blessing and a curse of art to always be pushing yourself to grow and be better. And you have to look at it as a blessing and not a curse. You have to say, wow, I've really gotten so much better at this thing than here. And I was proud of what I did then because I had the knowledge that I had then. And I did this with that knowledge. And now I have even more knowledge on top of that. Like chapter 1 started me on this journey to be able to get to chapter 30, 40, 50, 100, whatever. So you have to just be proud of the fact that you started, because there are so many people who just get so scared to start or to put themselves out there. And I totally get it. I have a hard time looking at my old art, but this is something that I'm working on as well, is I have to say I was doing the best with the skills that I had at the time. And instead of saying like, oh my God, that's so bad, I'm like, that step got me to where I am today. And if I got bogged down in my work always being bad, there would never be any Drawfee episodes. Because I'm not making art on that thing. Not a lot of the time. Not like, you know, art to the standard that my brain would like, or that my maybe my college professors would like. But you see what I mean? Like, you kind of just have to go for it. You kind of have to shift your focus on what is important to you. Is it is the most important part about putting something out that it's the best thing that anyone's ever going to make? Because if so, I have really bad news about art. It is subjective. For some people, your art is going to be freaking killer, stellar, the best thing, their favorite thing. It's going to strike a chord with them in a way that no one else's art is ever going to strike. And that is beautiful and wonderful and such like a human thing. And it's truly incredible, and what a gift of an experience, right? And for some other people, your art is going to be horrible, don't want to look at it, it's you know, not worth noting, I don't even remember it, blah blah blah. So you can't think about being the best artwork ever. You have to find what you are proud of in that. You have to say, my goal for this comic is to say this thing. Am I accomplishing saying this thing? Am I accomplishing resonating this idea to people, relating this idea to people, or making people feel this way? Then I'm accomplishing my goal. And then from there, you can fine tune doing better at different aspects of it. You can say, I'm refining my art, but I never missed my goal of expressing to people the idea that I want to get expressed. So I think when you start a major project like a comic or a graphic novel, you have to set yourself a goal that is not resonate with every single person on this planet Earth, and be the best artwork that will ever be made, because that is impossible. No one will ever make the best artwork that will ever be made, except for J.C. Leyendecker, who makes perfect art. Made perfect art. Yes, pass. So I am there constantly of being like, oh my God, I can't go forward and make this thing knowing that my art's going to improve, or like the art today isn't going to be as good as the art tomorrow. But then you'll never make anything. I would never make Drawtectives. You know how embarrassed I am of Drawtective Season 1? Very. But it's still out there, and people still like it, and it's still fun, and I have to shift what my goal is on that one, which I accomplished. My goal was to start this silly series. That is fun, that is a detective thing, whatever. But the art, I'm like, you know? So, yeah. I get it. But what else are you going to do? Never do anything. It's sort of the nature of creating. The meal you cook, you could have made it better. But while you were eating it, you were still enjoying it. Unless you weren't. And then you'll keep that as a lesson for the next meal. As for the other part, any tips on giving the best head start for the comic so that it reaches a wider audience would be helpful? That one's a hard one to answer. So I have a friend who does art. I really like his style. It is wild. It is wild and incomprehensible. And we come from very different trains of thought. I am from content creation, how to market it to people. I also wanted to be a freelance illustrator, so I learned how to make a accessible art style or accessible pieces, or like think about what people are looking for. And he doesn't give a shit about that. Wee. His goal is to resonate. He has told me that if it finds the one person that it resonates perfectly with, then he has accomplished his goal. Me, I want everyone to love it. That's impossible. So, you can think about marketing. When you're making a thing, you can make some changes to your piece or whatever you're making to make it more accessible if that's something that you're willing to do. You know, you can hit some sort of zeitgeisty themes that are going on, and I'm not saying like, you know, you have to include celebrities or it has to be a medium about gay hockey. You know, that sort of thing. But, you know, what you have to think about, if you want it to be marketable, you have to think about where people's mindset is right now. You have to think about talking points, or you have to think about like, what is the style that people are liking. You can also think about how people are getting recommendations for things. We were talking to some dev friends who said that the best and only marketing for video games right now is streamer marketing. It's to get a streamer to play your game, because that is the best way to reach an audience. And, you know, that's not necessarily going to be the case for comic books and things, but, you know, with sort of like the landscape right now, you do want to hit like the social algorithm. So how do you do that? If you're making a comic, maybe you think while you're making the thing, you keep in mind, like, I'm looking for a scene in this comic that would be really good to do motion graphics to or animate lightly so I can put it on social media so that it gets people's attention and shares it, you know. Like not that I like the company, but like Webtoons is doing that with a lot of their comics. They're doing like short form motion graphics with some of the comics on there. And it works. People share it, people see it, people like to watch it, people love to endlessly scroll, which is why, you know, we hate it. But like YouTube is pushing shorts, and that's because it's really successful with the audiences. It's really shareable. People are okay to committing to a minute and a half of their time to watch this thing that their friend shared with them, as opposed to like, you know, sit down, watch this 10-minute video about this thing, or like read 10 chapters of this comic. Some people have the patience for it, but it's very hard to get people who are at home sitting on a toilet going, I need something to while away the time. They're not going to say, let me bust out this whole book, or let me look up like you know, comics that are hitting this, that, and the other thing. It's like, you know, it's the shareability. So if your comic isn't like full color too, you can do a little extra work where you have some pages that you really want to highlight, that you feel like summarize what you're going for, or really like hook people in. You can do some color passes that aren't in the comic, but you can put on social media and say like, you know, because colors pop and whatever. And it's a lot of little like micromanaging stuff. But that's kind of where like the market is right now, is those like short form sharing things, and like social media platforms boost short form videos, or they boost things that have images. So that's how you can do it. It's a lot of word of mouth marketing right now, from what I understand. I don't know. We don't market Drawfee, so. But that's what I've heard from game dev friends and, you know, independent comic artist friends. That's what I would suggest. Make a nice little tied up bow short form video that people can share, or some images that you can share on social media that are punchy. I think that's the last question, because the last question is this one that we answered as we were going. I guess I didn't answer general advice for conventions. That's pretty general. General advice for doing conventions. If you are tabling at a convention, the advice that I would give, bring lots of water, maybe a comfy cushion to sit on your chair. Be open to talking. I think, like, think about what makes you want to go to a table. What makes you want to engage with the person that's working at the table. Usually if someone's, like, in a corner and they look busy... Excuse me, I knew that was coming. If someone is, like, in a corner looking busy, even if that busy work is, like, drawing, I'm like, but we're all artists here. You could be doing work and I don't want to interrupt you. So, like, I usually don't engage with people, and sometimes I could be doodling, but I don't want to be rude, so I don't want to, like, interrupt them and eat away their time. So look like you're willing to talk, or, you know, without, like, putting too much pressure. I feel like people who sit at their table like this and, like, making eye contact with everyone can push some people who are socially awkward out. Because they feel that pressure to engage, and they don't even want to look at your table. Because if they look at your table, oh no, you might talk to them. And that's anxiety central. So, you know, you kind of sit there, look around, look engaging, like you're enjoying the convention. Nice and casual, but like you're willing to talk if people want, but you're not like exactly looking for conversation. You're not going to try and like whoop someone in. And I'm not the convention expert here, Karina is, but that's kind of like where I live. Is that like I want people to feel comfortable coming to my table, and if someone does come up to my table, I'll say like, hey, how's it going? And then if they're giving me like I'm like, let me know if you need any help, and then I leave them alone. But then if they're engaging in that conversation, like, oh, I'm doing really well, how are you? I'll keep that conversation going to be like nice and friendly and things like that. But, you know, you just kind of read the people's vibe. Don't put too much pressure to make every interaction a sale. I feel like having a nice display for whatever you're selling, don't flood it with too many pieces, because then you have to, first of all, bring that inventory, and also people are going to be going through. It's like, you know, people have those setups where they sit and then they have those like big overhead display cabinet things where they pin things to the front. If you have like too many pieces, I'm getting overwhelmed. I need like a nice curated amount of things that are punchy and show me what you got. You know, I'm more willing to look at every piece that you have if you have fewer pieces. I'm not saying have two. You just got to find the right balance. Lay it out, and if you're like, oh my god, this is a lot, like something that I think Karina did, or maybe we did. Sorry, my eyes are like bugging out. Is that we would lay out like the prints on the floor like they would be on the display. Maybe I did this. I don't know. And we would see like how it would look, so that we didn't have to like set up the whole thing and then, you know, pin everything and then take it down, deconstruct it. Just lay it down on the floor and say like, this is a good display. It's nice and legible. People can see what I'm selling. And it's not overwhelming. But that's it. Someone said, oh, it's very similar to me with Instagram follows because it's hard to follow people who post too much. Yeah. Yeah, you want to strike like a nice balance of things to show people without having so many that they get overwhelmed, but also like if you only have 3 items, they're going to be like, where's the rest? Where's the rest? Can I see? And you might be narrowing your audience too small, because then you're only catering for 3 pieces and maybe those 3 pieces aren't hitting with people. So you want to have like a nice variation. I know that's pretty broad. It's kind of hard to have like a steadfast rule, but be open, engaging, but not overwhelming is generally my life motto. I don't want to overwhelm anyone with either my presence or the things that I'm selling, but I don't want to shy away and make people feel like they can't talk to me or engage with the things that I have up for interacting. That's it. Those are all the questions we have. Thank you everyone for joining this draw class. I sincerely hope this helped. I just wanted to try and do a Q&A. Maybe I'll word it better if I do this again so that people ask me, I don't know, more stuff. Ask me more stuff. I love to answer stuff, business questions, whatever, art questions. But that's it. I hope everyone has a great weekend. Thanks for joining the draw class. Thanks for being patrons. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.